class.
Good morning.
What happened this morning? Are we all sleeping?
No, sir.
Where do you all spend your weekends? At home, obviously. Well, it look like you're having some kind of hangover.
It's a cold morning, sir.
Cold morning.
Weather is inclement.
Weather for two. You guys are alone.
You too,
Very
sir.
sorry. Excuse me.
You're not married, sir.
Well, let's focus on the topic of the day. Today we'll be talking about a very important global threat issue. But before I proceed, what do you think is the biggest global threat issue in the 21st century? Yes, Lizzie.
Climate change.
Why do you think so?
I think so because climate change causes natural disasters like drought, flooding, landslides, and global warming all over the world.
Brilliant. Now, is there anyone with a different opinion?
So,
Yeah.
I think it is pandemic.
Pandemic?
Diseases. Over the last 10 years, we have had series of diseases. Very dangerous one. For example, in 2020, we had COVID-19. Currently, we're suffering from mpox. So I think that disease is a big threat to humanity.
You see, that's a good answer. Pandemics and diseases are part of a global threat issue, but that's not what I'm looking for right now. That's not the answer I'm looking for right now. Is there any other person with a different opinion? Yes, Faith.
I think it's Islamic extremism.
Islamic extremism. Why do you think so?
For example, if you look around the world, even in Nigeria here, you notice that most terrorist organizations are coming from an Islamic sect. For example, Boko Haram, Al Qaeda, Hezbollah, and so many others.
Brilliant. Excellent. You see, while I think that climate change is the biggest global threat issue in the 21st century, Islamic extremism, on the other hand, is the biggest man-made global threat issue in the 21st century. Now, let's discuss Islamic extremism.
Hello, viewers. It is great to have you on Beyond the Headlines. The objective of this program is not to establish a dogmatic opinion, but to tickle your minds to think factually about the surface, beyond the surface of global events. Now, the bloody clash between the Nigerian security forces and members of the Islamic movement of Nigeria on Sunday inspires a deep thought about Islamic extremism in Nigeria and across the world. Bitter recriminations and blame game have trailed this violent incident. The police is accusing the Islamic sect of launching an unprovoked attack, while the sect is blaming the police for assaulting members of the sect who were peacefully holding their Bayan procession. What is their Bayan procession? Their Bayan procession is an annual event held to honor the Hussein ibn Ali, grandson of the Islamic prophet Muhammad, who along with his companions was martyred in the Battle of Karbala in the 7th century. But I am neither interested in the clash nor in which party struck the first blow. I am concerned about the motivation behind the attack in relation to Islamic movements around the world. Why does Islamic extremism seem to be the ugliest threat to world peace in the 21st century? In the 18th and 19th centuries, global peace was threatened by France's war of aggression under Napoleon Bonaparte. In the 20th century, world peace was distorted by the Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, alongside Japan and Italy. But relatively, all these aggressors were easily crushed for two major reasons. One is that the battles were conventional. They were fought by the use of regular armed forces. They involved employment of conventional weapons such as tanks and artilleries. They had clear distinction between combatants and non-combatants, as well as linear battlefield tactics. The second reason is that the aggressors, despite their zeal, were no match to the superior forces of European powers in the 19th centuries and the Allied powers of the 20th century. In the 21st century, the age of artificial intelligence and advancement in technology, a more scary threat to world peace is Islamic extremism. Think of it. It took the Allied powers about 5 years to defeat the fully fledged sovereign aggressors in 1945. But the United States, despite its superior intelligence and military clout, was unable to crack down on Osama bin Laden until 10 years after the traumatic terrorist attack on the US soil on September 11, 2001. Also in the same year, the US invasion of Afghanistan was the beginning of a 20-year unsuccessful battle against Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. In 2020, the failure of the US to contain the rebels led to Taliban's takeover of the state and its reimposition of the strict form of the Sharia law on its people. So, the world community is battling series of Islamic terrorism. Taliban from Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda from Saudi Arabia, ISIS from Iraq and Syria, Boko Haram from Nigeria, Hamas from Palestinian territories, Hezbollah from Lebanon, Al-Shabaab from Somalia, Hezbollah Mujahideen from Pakistan, and a host of others. There are many, very many of them in so many countries in the world. Now, according to a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center for People and the Press, 27 out of 43 countries have Islam as an official state religion. These countries are in Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, and the Middle East. So, Islamic extremism is witnessed across board. But what is the motivation for this spread of extremism? In the traditional Islamic culture, there is a concept known as Ummah. Ummah is the idea of a Muslim community that is unified spiritually, culturally, and politically. Yes, Muslims tend to display a strong sense of solidarity with members across the world. Muslims tend to view politics as inextricably bound to religion. This explains why Indian Muslims insisted on a separate state of Pakistan when India got her independence in 1947. It also explains why Ayatollah Khomeini led fundamentalist Muslims to overthrow the government of Iran in 1979. Khomeini was a Shiite Muslim. The Shiite is a group of Muslims who believe in a more incorruptible, conservative Islamic tradition. When Prophet Muhammad died in the early 7th century, without a male heir, dispute arose over who should be the successor of this prophet. Majority of Muslim communities who would become known as the Sunnis proposed an election of the next leader from among the prophet's closest friends by voting. But the Muslim minority who would become the Shiite maintained that only blood relatives of the prophet could succeed him. In the end, the Sunnis' will prevailed. But this did not come without violent confrontation from the Shiite group. Today, the split between the Shiite and the Sunnis still persists. Be that as it may, there is a growing sense of Islamic sentiments globally. In Nigeria, agitations by series of Islamic sects have continued to jeopardize national unity. Already, there is a wide religious and ethnic chasm in the country. In the south, there are over 10 separatist groups that have established bases at home and abroad. In the north, religious inclination or indoctrination refuses to cease as thousands of young people are bolstered by lack of Western education and hunger. We talk of Boko Haram, we talk of ISWAP and all that as advocating terrorism. But it is instructive that this inclination of Islamic extremism might still be latent in the hearts of many Muslims in the north. There is no doubt, therefore, that the threat might become more dangerous. The threat might become more visible in the future. That's why in Nigeria, Muslims are more loyal to their religion than to the state or the country. They feel that Nigeria is still somewhat secular, a country accommodating cultures different from theirs. In February, when Ibrahim el-Zakzaki, the founder of Islamic movement of Nigeria, returned to Nigeria from Iran, we saw how thousands of Muslims clustered in jubilation to welcome him. But this is a man who has extreme Islamic ideas, as Boko Haram. This was the man who once said that Nigeria would never progress until the country was made an Islamic state. El-Zakzaki was inspired by the Iranian Revolution of 1979, led by the Khomeini. He then believed that if this revolt was possible in Iran, yes, he could also achieve that in Nigeria. While studying economics at Ahmadu Bello University, Kaduna, he became a member of the Muslim Student Society of Nigeria. El-Zakzaki's brilliance and erudition in Islamic studies endeared him to the people, to the Muslim people in the north. In the course of time, he began to preach the abolition of the Nigerian constitution and returned to a pure form of the Islamic life. In 2015, he was apprehended, kept in detention for almost 6 years, and released in 2021. Today, El-Zakzaki is a free man, but that does not erase the deep-rooted Islamic extremism he harbors in the heart. Many Muslims nurse this same inclination as him. Thousands of Muslims around the world also reserve this mind frame. The pertinent questions are, can the world combat this threat of Islamic extremism, particularly in Nigeria? Will Nigeria, my country, your country, survive the overwhelming threat coming from multiple ethnic and religious rebellions across the country? What would happen if the world were to experience a situation where the Islamic extremists or terrorists develop the ability to wield weapons of mass destruction? What would happen if that were to be the case? I leave these questions to you to answer, our viewers. Thank you very much.